Hi, my name is Carole, and I am English. I've been living in Turkey now for 23 years, and, I'm currently the president of the Make-A-Wish Foundation here in Turkey. We grant the wishes, the cherished wish, of children who are suffering from a life-threatening illness, aged between 3 and 18, to enrich the human experience with hope, strength, and joy. Now, how did I get here, and what were the influential factors along the way? My story of who I am, and actually it's maybe more important as to what the factors are that have made me who I am, why I am who I am, began a long time ago. And the journey has taken me this far. I would like to go through it with you. Sorry, I have learnt this, but it's just difficult. When I was very little, I had a wish, and this is maybe linking up to this. And my very first wish, being crazy about ponies, was I wanted to have a pony. My father was very sensible. He said to me, "You finish your studies, no pony now, you must finish your studies and graduate from school, and when that happens, regardless of cost, I will buy you whatever you want." Now, the prospect of an Arab thoroughbred stallion versus a little pony, that outweighed it. So I shook hands on the deal, and that was that. Little did I know that growing up, becoming a teenager, there were certain other factors like young gentlemen that might take my fancy and interest. So by the time I got to 18, my father was very clever. No pony, I didn't want one. I was very happy with my other interest. So, unfortunately, with the good comes the bad. And my father had a prejudice which affected my formative years quite a lot. One of the things that I wanted to tell you as young adults is it's really important not to let prejudices influence you and try and confront them. It took me many, many years before I could confront them. And when I challenged my father all those years ago, well, no, it wasn't all those years ago, actually. I challenged him about it. He actually had no recollection of this, and he had no idea of the effect it had had on my life, but it was major. And none of us have the right to impose our prejudices on other people. So I'm very careful with my children to try and stay neutral and not give them my prejudices, because everybody has them, and it's really important not to pass them on. As I grew into a young adult, there came the decision of choosing careers. Now, I'd always been interested in photography. I had a cousin who was a well-known photographer in the 60s in London. And I was also fascinated by anything medical. Not enough to be a doctor or a nurse, but, something on the periphery would be really quite cool. And I did a lot of research in those days, was in libraries, and I found that there was a profession called medical photography. So that's the one that I decided to do. So I was on my way, and in my last year of college, I was making a thesis with a professor at a major London teaching hospital, making an audiovisual program about his subject, and I was loving every minute of it. And later on, as it got closer to the graduation and everything, he said, "I'd love you to come and work for me, Carole." I said, "Wow, amazing. I'm in heaven. I've got my dream job producing audiovisual programs in an environment which I adore. What could be better?" And then I get a telephone call just before the end of term. "I'm so excited to work with you, Carole. However, you'll have to find your own salary. Go out and get sponsorship." To say I was disappointed could be an understatement. But as you'll realize as I go along, challenges are what it's all about. And so I set about trying to find the sponsorship so I could do this job. I approached companies, pharmaceutical companies. I sent them letters. I followed up with telephone calls and got nowhere. It was a bad time of the year. The financial budgets had been done in April. This was June. I got absolutely nowhere. So I had to rethink, and I decided that I had to get a job. So I went out, I put myself out on the marketplace, let's get a job. And of course, I didn't have any experience, so then I can't get the job. But if I don't have the experience and I can't get the job, how am I going to get the experience to get the job? A super wonderful, lovely, vicious circle, no job. This, unfortunately, is the world as it was then, and I still believe it is the same now. But don't give up, because you shouldn't get discouraged from it. But it is the way that happens. Giving up is not an option, as far as I'm concerned, and I would strongly recommend you never give up, because there's always something that you can do. So I researched a bit more, and I found that I could continue my education and work at the same time. So I could really become extremely specialized in medical photography. And I went off to live in Wales, where I was studying and learning. For the first time, I left home, and off I went to Wales. There I encountered another prejudice, a prejudice that was against me this time, against women. Now, admittedly, this is going back more years than I will tell you, but I was shocked by it. I really was. The man in charge of the department was what is known as a male chauvinist, I think you would say, because he felt that only the guys in the department should get the really interesting jobs, because us girls, women, were only going to go off and get married and have babies. So why would he, invest his time in training and making us better when we were going to leave him? That was incredibly frustrating, as I'm sure all the ladies in this audience will agree. And really, I was really upset by it. So I'd learned a lesson there that basically nothing, I'd been learning all along that nothing is easy, and struggles are what make us fight and try and overcome them, and they will make us stronger. So then, after qualifying in my specialist subject and being disheartened, I actually got a surprise telephone call from my tutor at college, and he said that I was offered a job with a commercial photographic company. And again, up for a challenge, I returned to London and started work there. And there I met my Turkish delight of my own, and I was getting married, and I wanted more time for myself, and my family's business had a position whereby I could actually do my work. I could still do photography in a different way. I ended up doing different types of photography and more in the advertising, but it gave me flexibility to actually get married, and that's what I wanted to do. So that was what I did from then. So we'll skip a few years now, and I have young children, and I haven't worked for 5 years. I'm very strong, obviously being in a charitable business and philanthropy. I really, really believe that if you have a roof over your head and food on the table, you have an obligation to give back to the community you live in. It really is as simple as that. And so I'd learnt that when I was a child from my mother. She used to volunteer for all sorts of different organisations. She was always busy doing this, that, or the other. And she also became a president of a small charity at that stage. And she showed me that you should be giving back. It's not all about me, me, me. It is all about the people around us. So I decided that I would help. I would start volunteering. And having young children, the logical thing for me was to go and volunteer in a hospital where there were children. So I offered my services to Great Ormond Street Hospital, which is a specialist hospital in London, and it has patients and children from all over the world as well as from England. Children who go to this hospital are seriously ill usually, because they have been referred by local hospitals and by doctors where they don't know what else to do or how to do it. And the specialist knowledge is in Great Ormond Street. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. I worked there in the radiology department, and my job was to play with the children while they were waiting for their scans and things like that. Now, children were very scared, and it's difficult to be in hospital as an adult even, but for a child, it's really quite frightening. So I spent my time trying to reassure them and help them through a difficult period. So sort of looking back at this stage, Something was happening even then that was leading to where I am now. So then we have the biggest challenge of all, coming to Turkey. I was up for it, obviously, because I love that type of challenge. When we used to come and visit Turkey before, because I got married long before we came, people used to say to me in England, what's it like living in Turkey? And I'd say, oh, it's wonderful. Great food, super weather, lovely people. But I'd never lived there. It's lovely, nice to visit for holiday. Big lesson to learn, never say never, because you never know when it's going to come back and haunt you. So I was eating humble pie for many years, saying never say never. Yes, I'm living in Turkey. Yes, 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 no problem. So never is a negative thing, so I suggest you should never use it. I was very excited about the prospect of actually starting a new chapter in my life. My mum was the greatest advocate of positivity. She always believed, and I do too, that the glass is always half full as opposed to empty. And she would always say, cry and you cry alone, but laugh and the world will laugh with you, which was exactly my mum. I've got millions of stories about her, but I haven't got time, so I'm just going to give you one little story which was hysterical. She moved to Turkey after my father passed away, and she was living near me, and we went for a walk with the dog on the Bosphorus, parked my car, wrong place. Didn't realize it at the time, went back to get her into the car, no car, it's gone to the pound. So off I trot with mother and dog in tow to the local car pound, and I go, Mum, you just sit here, I'll go into the policeman, I'll try and, sort out, get off the fine maybe, or just pay it and we'll go. And I go in and I'm done. And the police are very firm. They say, no, this is the fine, pay it. So I pay it. It's difficult to argue in Turkish. I'm not too bad, but I'm not that good. And I come out, and there is my mum drinking Turkish tea, chatting with the policeman. She goes, darling, you must not park in a bus stop. I mean, how did she communicate with them? I have no idea. How did they communicate with her? But she got the message. So when daily things are difficult and life is tough, try to look on the bright side, have a smile on your face. She smiled at everybody. It was like, Mum, enough. But she got the response. People responded very positively to her. So people will respond to that type of behavior. So having moved here and with kids in school, and I had plenty of time, but my Turkish wasn't very good. Sign language used to get me through. Now I'm quite good, even though my family wouldn't agree, but I think I'm okay. English is better. So I decided to go back to my original profession of being a medical photographer. And I met up with a surgeon at Cerrahpaşa, and he allowed me basically to retrain myself and get back into it. And I would be creative because he had certain things that he wanted me to do, like take pictures of x-rays where you need a special box and special film. And that's what I love about Turkey, is that they're solution orientated. I found a carpenter, I said, I need a light box. It was done, it was perfect. And I worked there for a few years, and then I decided to freelance and give give seminars on photography. I met a Scottish lady from Kodak who had helped me with my film, and she got me on my way so I could do all the work. Now today, when I introduced myself, I think I introduced myself correctly, I said, hi, my name is Carole. And this is when you may notice I didn't say my last name, my surname, because what's happened over the years is it has a very interesting effect on people, and it's not always a positive one for me. So, a good example of this was when I was working in the operating theatre. I could hear the operating nurses giggling in the background and gossiping, and they're going, bak, bu vakunun gelini. And I'm thinking, and I don't know how to respond to this because my Turkish isn't good, and I don't know what to say to them, but I got really angry, and it was not nice. I wasn't happy because, that's not fair. And what happened since then, I was giving seminars. I was trying to get more work and do my job because I loved doing it. A doctor came to me and asked me to do a job for him, and he said, I'd like you to work for me. And I said, great, that sounds lovely. I gave him an idea of what I expected to be paid for it. And to cut a very long story short, he said to me, can't you think of yourself as an amateur professional? maybe this should be a hobby. And I said, 4.5 years of training and years of working, hobby? I don't think so. This is, if I want a hobby, I'll do charity work. So this was a real prejudice against my name, and I have to say it really upset me. So I decided to change course slightly. I think one thing, a message to you guys is people are really weird. I mean, there's a proverb in English which says, there's nought as strange as folk, which actually means there's nothing as strange as people. And the best thing is to not expect too much from anybody, because then you won't be disappointed, you might be pleasantly surprised. So after that, I was very upset, and it was pivotal in bringing me to where I am today. But if you told me then, I would never have believed it. So when difficulties come your way, they do happen for a reason. You just don't know it at the time. You really don't. And it may be years before it comes out. But look on it as you will come out stronger and better for it. So I decided to learn something else. And I was interested in complementary medicine. And I did reflexology, which is a foot therapy where you use hands and thumbs and fingers. And it's holistic. We balance the body's energy, we help circulation, and we relieve stress and tension. But why am I telling you this? The reason I'm telling you this is I decided to go back to volunteering, and I went to a hospital and I worked in an oncology ward with children. And I would give them reflexology. And of course, you build up a relationship and you start chatting. And the kids were saying to me they wanted to meet a footballer, they wanted to meet a pop star. Rewind. My name is Carole Hakko. With this name, I know people. I can open a door. I can ask for a favor. I can actually use this and make this work in my favor. So off I trot, and I phone up Mustafa Sandal, because he used to be a DJ, and we used to know a radio station, blah, 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 blah. And I ask him if he'll come and do this wish for us. And he says, fine, as long as there's no press. Again, cutting a long story short, he comes into the ward of the children singing. And they have no idea. This is a total surprise. And the mums and the dad, well, there weren't many dads, but there were mums and the nurses and the children were all absolutely amazed. And I noticed the effect of having a wish granted. It is enormous to the children and their families. They have a really daily struggle just to survive. And what we do is we give them hope. We give the families a moment in time where they don't have to struggle. They don't have to think about their illness. They can actually just enjoy living their dream, which is what we try to do. So, hang on, so I'm so sorry. So this took me to Bir Dilek Tut, Make-A-Wish Turkey in 2005. I had the first wish I ever did was little Yusuf, who wanted to meet Tuncay from Fenerbahce, and I really have to cut it short. I can see the time is running. He had a physical illness, and his mum used to say to me, it's important to make him feel confident and strong. And after we granted his wish, he said to his mum, she phoned me and said, he said to me that I now know why my wish was granted, because I'm important. And that's crucial. Self-confidence is something that we sometimes maybe take for granted, but be confident, because it's important. Another one was I had some Greek children that came over for Formula One. The reason I'm saying this is you have to ask questions. You have to ask for things in life. We were walking through the paddock. I'd asked for lots of tickets. They gave them to me. I asked for something special. I got it. Don't be afraid to ask. I'm going to have to move on, I think, to the final slide, which gives the slogans. So everything happens for a reason. The reason you don't know at the time. The pony story, the surgeon story. I then met somebody the Scottish lady later on, and she helped me. Imagine if this surgeon had not been so rude and so awful, I wouldn't have changed direction, and then I wouldn't be standing here doing what I love so passionately. So it is good. You don't know it at the time. If you don't ask, you don't get. Grab opportunities. What's the worst that can happen? Someone will say no. But if you don't actually ask, you won't get it. Never give up and nothing is impossible. You must keep going. Life and circumstances will put limits to it. Don't do it to yourself. Be, think, and live positively. Life is much richer by that. Right. And finally, the last one that my mum said, again, I go back to my mum, be positive. Being around negative and miserable people is draining, and it does you no good. So smile. The world will smile with you, and believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. Try to also understand that you are responsible for your life, no one else. It is yours, truly, and yours alone. So we're blessed to be on this earth for whatever time we're lucky enough to have, and we should make the most of it. Good luck to all of you. Thank you.